Hello everyone, hope you all are fine. Myself Gurinder Pal Singh. In this video, we will study chapter number 9 of class 9th, that is force and laws of motion. We will study about introduction of force, types of forces, Newton's first law of motion, types of inertia, Newton's second law of motion, Newton's third law of motion, and law of conservation of momentum. So students, in the previous chapter, we have discussed the motion of a body in 1, 2 and 3 dimensions without taking into the consideration of the cause which produces the motion. So, the branch of physics which deals with the motion of a body without considering the cause of motion is called kinematics. Now, in this chapter, we will discuss the motion of a body by taking into the consideration the cause, that is, force which produces the motion. This branch of physics is called dynamics. Our day-to-day experience tells us that a body at rest remains at rest unless someone pulls it or pushes it. In other words, some push or pull, that is, an external agent, is needed to set a body in motion from its rest position. Similarly, if a body is moving over a surface, then again some push or pull is needed to stop the motion of a body. For example, we put our hand in the path of a moving ball on the surface of floor to bring it to the rest. A body running in a playground can be stopped by dragging him in the backward direction. In order to clarify this concept, I'll give you more examples. As you all are familiar that if we want to open a door, we have to push the door handle. Similarly, when we want to close it, we have to pull it. This shows that in order to move the body, we need to pull or push. This pull or push is called force. Likewise, if we need to hammer a nail in wood, we have to strike the hammer on nail with great strength. So combining both, we can sum up that the pushing and pulling or the strength is force. We can define it in an technical language as an external influence which when applied on a body can bring about changes in it. Also we can say force is a physical quantity which causes a motion in a body, or which opposes the motion of a body, or which changes the direction of motion of a body. The changes that can be brought about in a body are change in position, change in direction, change in dimension, and change in speed of body. Kicking of football is an example of change in position. Applying force on steering wheel of a car is an example of change in direction. Squeezing a tube of toothpaste is an example of change in dimension. And accelerating a car is an example of change in speed of body. So students, next we will study about types of forces. We have two types of forces depending upon whether the effect of force is seen or felt or not. That is, balanced force and unbalanced force. In balanced force, the equal and opposite force acting on a body which will not make the body move. For example, if we have a box and in order to move it, we apply force. Let's say the same force is acting on an object from opposite sides. Then both forces will cancel each other's effect as their magnitude is same and both are acting from opposite sides. So the resultant force will be zero. In unbalanced force, the unequal and opposite force acting on the body which will make the body move in the direction of greater force applied. For example, if we have a box and in order to move it, we need to apply a force. Let's say the force of unequal magnitude is acting on an object from opposite sides. This time, both the forces will not cancel each other effect as their magnitude is not the same. So, the resultant force will not be zero and will also make the body move in the direction of greater force applied. Now students, before studying the next topic, I'll give you one situation. Just think, for example, if you need to ride a bicycle, you need to pedal as it can't move on its own. You have to apply force on pedals to ride it. Similarly, if you need to change its direction, you need to apply force on the steering wheel. The reason behind it is the inherent property called inertia. Let's try to understand it. It is an inherent property that is present in all bodies from the time of their origin. That means this property is not fended into a substance, it is present from the time of its origin. This property actually resists any kind of change in body by itself, like if we need to ride a bicycle, we have to pedal it. It will not move on its own. We need to apply force by pedaling it. So students, very important thing that you need to understand here is that in order to move or change any property of body, we need to overcome inertia. There are certain factors on which inertia depends. It depends upon mass. More the mass, more is the inertia, or lesser the mass, lesser is the inertia. Let us consider two stationary objects. One is heavier than the other. Now, if we apply the same force on these objects, then it is observed that it is difficult to move the heavier object than that of the lighter one. It means the heavier object resists or opposes more to the change in its state of rest than the lighter object. Thus, more is the mass, more is the inertia. So students, inertia of a body is directly proportional to its mass. Inertia of rest, inertia of motion, inertia of direction are the three types of inertia. We know all the bodies at rest remain at rest unless an external force is applied on them. It means the body cannot move itself from the state of rest. This inherent property of the object, by virtue of which it remains at rest unless an external force is applied on it, is called inertia of rest. In other words, the property of a body by virtue of which it resists or opposes the change in its state of rest is called inertia of rest. Now we will study the examples of inertia of rest. Students, we know that when a bus suddenly starts moving forward, the passengers of the bus fall backward. What is the reason behind it? Let me tell you about this. This is because the lower part of the bodies of the passenger being in contact with the floor of the bus come in motion along with bus, whereas the upper parts of the bodies remain at rest due to inertia of rest. Hence, they fall backward. Similarly, a careless rider falls backward when horse runs suddenly. Similarly, if a carpet is beaten with a stick, the fibers of the carpet come in motion and hence move forward, but the dust particles, due to inertia of rest, remain at rest and fall down. Now students, imagine a situation where there is no friction between two surfaces. In that case, a body moving in a straight line with constant velocity will remain moving with the same velocity unless an external force is applied on it. This inherent property of the object or body is called inertia of motion. In other words, property of a body by virtue of which it resists or opposes the change in its uniform motion is called inertia of motion. Now we will study the examples of inertia of motion. The passengers fall forward when a fast moving bus stops suddenly. This is because the lower part of their bodies of the passengers come into rest along with bus, while the upper part of the bodies continue to move forward due to inertia of motion. Similarly, a person falls forward while getting down from a moving bus. This is because as his feet touch on ground, the lower part of his body comes to rest. On the other hand, upper part remains in motion due to inertia of motion, and hence he falls forward. Now students, we must know that a body moving in a particular direction can never change its direction by itself unless a force is applied on it. This property of the body is called inertia of direction. In other words, property of a body by virtue of which it resists the change in its direction of motion is called inertia of direction. Now we will study the examples of inertia of direction. If a car takes a turn along a curved road, the passenger experiences a force acting away from the center of the curved road. This is due to the tendency of passengers to continue moving along a straight path. Similarly, consider a stone tied with a string moves in a circle. If the string breaks suddenly during the motion, the stone will fly off tangentially at that point of the circle due to inertia of direction. Students, after understanding the concepts of inertia, you will easily understand Newton's first law of motion. According to this law, everybody continues in its state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless compelled by net external force to change that state. Basically, it is the definition of inertia, hence, first law of motion can also be termed as law of inertia. Now students, one question for you, which has more inertia, a rubber ball or stone of same size, bicycle or train? As we have studied that inertia is directly proportional to mass. So, from rubber ball or stone of same size, a stone of same size has more inertia. And out of bicycle or train, a train has more inertia. Next question is, explain why some leaves detach from a tree when branch of tree is shaken. Reason is, initially the branch of tree and its leaves and fruits are in state of rest. But when force is applied on the branch of a tree, the tree comes in motion, but due to inertia of rest, the leaves and fruits remain in the state of rest, hence falls down. Thank you so much students. Hope you liked this video.